was leading through the wildernesses. Brother, look at that and compare them to our church. And I've lesson, a church in a wilderness. A church in a wilderness. And I want us the first thought to be a church going into a wilderness. Look over in the book of Exodus with me, chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3, verse 9. Exodus 3 and verse 9. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress him. And I will send thee unto Pharaoh, this is the Lord talking unto Moses, says, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses said unto God, who am I that I should go that I should of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. Here we see God has a plan. We see Moses, or God telling Moses, my people out of the land of Egypt. And here we see Lord knew what was coming their way. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take my people into the wilderness. I want my people, my chosen people. God knew. God knew what was to come for them. They had no idea, but God does. Moses says, Lord, God says, I'll be with you. Certainly, I'll be with you. God said, I'll be with you going into that wilderness. I'll be with you as you go into this wilderness out of Egypt. And here we find our church without a pastor. And I believe we can look at it today and think, we're in a wilderness of our own. We're in a wilderness. We're into something that looks, it's new and it's something scary. When you have a pastor up here giving the word, and here we don't have a pastor, and it's frightening, ain't it? It's something scary, ain't it? But here we see God telling Moses, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to lead you. Look at Exodus chapter 13. Exodus chapter 13, verse 21. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, and to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them the light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night before the people. Here he said, verse 21, and the Lord went before them. The Lord went before them in a cloud. They were following the Lord. He was already there. Before they got to that part, he was already there. He was leading them beforehand. He was already in. He knows what's coming. The Lord's leading them. Do you not feel the Lord leading our church? God's still in control. God's leading us. But yet, there is always in the back of our head, it's new, it's scary. What are we going to do? But God is leading in the wilderness. In this time of trials and time of troubles. For going through this by ourselves, could you imagine going into something without knowing God was with you, that God was on your side? Could you imagine? I wouldn't want to go through anything without the Lord on my side. God's leading us. Day in and day out, God is with our church. Secondly, I want us to look at a church being fed in the wilderness. A church being fed. In the wilderness. Look over in Exodus chapter 16. Exodus chapter 16. Like I said, what me and Brother Jason got, I mean, it's going hand in hand. Exodus chapter 16 and verse 4. Here we see the children of Israel, they're hungry. As we saw this morning, they're getting hungry. Verse 4 said, Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they walk within my law or no. Now look, verse 14 through 18. And the dew, the face of the wilderness, a small round ground. When the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna. They wist not what it was. Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. This is a thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather it up of it, every man according to his eating, and omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tent. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, they had gathered much and had nothing over. They were hungry. They needed something to eat. God provided that his people were hungry. God saw that his people were hungry. They needed something. And God provided. God provided, said, I want you to get, I'm going to rain down manna. I'm going to rain down this manna for y'all to eat. Oh, here's what I want y'all to gather. I want you to gather just what you need to get you through the day. Just to get you through that day. And we see in verse 18, and when they did meet it with an omer, he had gathered much, nothing over, and he gathered little, had no lack. They gathered every man according. They said there was nothing. They didn't lack nothing. They had what they need. God met their needs for that day. God met it. Now, you get a pastor up here, you're getting some meat, ain't you? Me and Brother Roger talking about that. Man, you get a preacher up here, it's different. Could you imagine going down to the steakhouse down there at Bardwell? Man, they've got a steak. It's out of this world. Man, they so lovingly go out there to the freezer and find that perfect side of beef and just cut it. They find the right marbling. One's just got the right marbling on it, got just the right amount of fat. Oh, and they take it, they tenderize it, and they marinate it for 48 hours, and they get that grill turned up just right, the right temperature. They flip it, cook it a little on this side, flip it over, get that char on that fat, get them grill marks on that, and they're careful when they're taking it off that they don't puncture any holes, so all that juice is in there. They set it on that plate, and they get you a big old nice potato, butter and sour cream, just steam coming off of it, that baked potato, just melting that butter and sour cream going in your plate. 2 slices of bread right there beside it. They come in here and they put it on front of you, and all you can do is say, you can look at it, but you can't eat it. You got to eat the bread. Could you imagine just wanting to eat the bread? I want the steak and the potato. I want the meat. I want the meat. That's what a pastor can give you. He can give you meat, can't he? But I want us to look too. Look over in Exodus chapter 17, verse 5. Exodus chapter 17 and verse 5. Here we see now they're getting thirsty. The Lord said unto Moses, Go on before the people, and take with thee the elders of Israel, and thy rod wherewith thou smote the river, take it in thine hand, and go. Behold, I will stand before thee upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Here they were hungry, God provided. Here they were thirsty, God provided out of a rock. Here we've seen rocks all our life. And what's it do? It just sits there. Just a plain old rock. Now, the way I look at it, God's given our church 7 different rocks in our church. Each one of these men that get up here and give a lesson. Now that rock been doing the same thing since the day of creation, just standing there. But God said, Moses, I want you to take that rod. Throughout the scriptures, you can hear the Lord talking to God. I want you to take that rod, and I want you to smite that rock. Now, what was the difference from any other day to that day right there? The Lord touched that rock, and it fed the children of Israel. Now, brothers, I know we've all had it when you just can't get nothing together, can you? You're just trying and you're trying, nothing happens. But it's when the Lord touches you, and then it just comes out, don't it? It just all of a sudden, you can just start jotting it down on paper. May not be members of this church. What we come up here and give you, it might not be steak and potatoes, and I agree. It might not be what we're longing for, but what we're getting out of each one of us is what God's given us to get us through the day. No, I don't want to get used to just man on water. I'm ready to get back to some steak and taters. But we need to thank God. Oh, thank you, Lord, for what I've got. Thank you, Lord, for another serve on it. That I can hold it on to it, and it'll cleave to me. That's what God will do with his church in a wilderness. He won't just lead them there, but when he gets them there, he makes sure they can sustain in there. He feeds them. Just like our bodies, our fleshly body needs food. That old spiritual body, that spiritual man, we need food, don't we? We need spiritual food to eat. We get hungry for it, don't we? But God knows it's just enough. What we need, it's just what we need to get us to the next service, to get us through the week. I'll go over in Philippians chapter 4. You can hold your page there, but we'll be back. But Philippians chapter 4. We all know this, but Philippians chapter 4. Philippians 4, verse 19. Says, but my God, here, so listen to this. But my God shall supply all your needs according to the riches by his glory. Guys, has God not met up to this very hour? Is there anybody out there that says, that can honestly say that God has not provided everything that Faith Baptist Church needs up to this very point? I mean, the Lord knows what we truly need. He knows what we need, how we need it. He supplied every bit of our needs up to this very day. That's what God does for his church that he loves. We don't just see God leading them to it, leading them through it. How wonderful is that to know that God is not just going to take us somewhere and say, all right, I'm dropping you off, in for yourself. But God's leading us to something, and he's going to lead you through it. I want to say that a church's weariness in the wilderness. A church's weariness in the wilderness. Exodus 32. Exodus chapter 32. Begin reading in verse 1 down through 6. Exodus chapter 32 and verse 1. And here we find Moses had went up to the mountain. The children of Israel, they're starting to get a little nervous because Moses ain't come down yet. And it says, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, he wot not that what has become of him. We said, we don't know what happened to Moses. We're getting nervous. And Aaron said unto them, break off the gold earrings which are in the ears of your wives and your sons and your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off their golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron, and he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool after gods. These be the, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow it is a feast to the Lord. They rose up early on the morning and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. People sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Here we see God's chosen people. God had led them into the wilderness. God had provided for them. And now Moses has been up there a little too long, getting them nervous. Getting them nervous. Go up to Aaron and said, Aaron, you got to do something. Give us something. We need something right now. After so long, we get nervous, don't we? We can get nervous, can't we? We'll sit there and, Lord, how long are we going to be here? Lord, how long? How long are we going to be without a pastor, Lord? I guarantee if we had spiritual fingernails, we would have just gnawed them down all the way to the quick by now, wouldn't we? So flesh, we can get nervous, can't we? Will our church, will this body, will we give in to the fear? Will we give in to temptation just to fill the pulpit? Will we see a man come along? Well, he's willing to step up here and start preaching to us, but he's a little iffy on this. He's a little slack on this. But we'll have somebody in the pulpit every Sunday. That's what they're doing. That's what the children of Israel is doing. I need something now, and I'm not willing to wait. We're all ready for a pastor, aren't we? Believe it, every one of us are ready. But are we ready to wait on God to give us one? Or we want to take matters into our own hands and get somebody up here and sacrifice what we've studied and what we've believed on for so long and been taught against to fill the pulpit. God is still with us and He's still providing for us as He sees fit. Not as Derik sees fit, but He's providing for us as God sees fit. I know it gets mighty nervous. We, as a church, we can hear the devil behind us, coming at us from every direction, wanting to come in here and plant doubts and wants to plant fears, to bring us down, to make you wonder, to question the Lord if He's even with us anymore. And then in front of us, you see the unknown future. We don't know what's going to happen. Does anybody in here know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone however many years down the road for our church? Do we know? We don't. What should we do? What should we do when our church gets weary? When each individual gets weary, what should we do? Exodus 14, as we heard this morning. Go ahead and read it again. Exodus 14. Exodus 14. In verse 9. But the Egyptians pursued after them. All the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army overtook them, encamping by the sea beside Pharphath and before Belzaphon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid. The children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, thou hast taken us away to die in this wilderness. Wherefore hast thou dealt this with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone? Wilderness. So here we go. Before we move on, they look up and they see the Egyptians coming at them. They see the Egyptians coming. I mean, it had to be a sight. Pharaoh, all the horses, all the chariots, all the men. Here they start worrying. They start to fear. Here in verse 13, Moses said unto the people, fear ye not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. What should our church do when we have a problem in front of us, and we have a problem in front and back of us, vice versa? What should we do? My brother Jason said this morning, stand still. Stand still, boy. It's a mighty hard thing to stand still and keep your mouth shut, don't it? Especially keep your mouth shut, like Brother Tyler said. But that's what we're to do. God took us into a wilderness. We've seen God provide for us. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Wednesday evening. And yet still, no pastor. Will we let that bring us down? Or we remember who's leading us, who's guiding us, who's still the head of this church? Will we recall that to memory? Look over in Psalms. Keep your finger there. Psalms 27. Psalms 27. Psalm 27 verse 14 says, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. It says, be of good courage. Have courage. Lord's on your side. But you've got to wait on the Lord. You know, trying to push the Lord along is about like trying to push a rope. You just can't do it, can you? You can't push a rope. We have to wait on the Lord in his time. God will lead. God will provide. As we've seen in the past. God's going to lead us. God's going to fight for us. And God's plan will come out victorious in the end. God will get complete and utter victory. Do y'all not believe that today? God will provide for us when he sees fit. God will take care of one of his true New Testament Baptist churches today. Look in Deuteronomy with me, chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Let's read we'll start in verse 3. We're talking about the children of Israel. Suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man does not live by bread alone, only but if every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Here they were. Can you imagine? 40 years. He said, you never hungered. You never thirsted. I took care of you. He said, your feet never swelled up. Your shoes never wore out. For 40 years. I don't know how long the Lord plans. I shouldn't question. I shouldn't ask Him. But if the Lord wants us to have somebody by next Sunday, I'm all for it. But if God chooses to go another year, God will provide. He is everything that we stand in need of. He is the all-sufficient. Everything that we stand in need of. God will take care of His church. He will not let her go down. But we need to stand still and watch the Lord work for us. Watch the Lord fight for us. And fourth and lastly, I want us to see a church being delivered out of the wilderness. A church being delivered out of the wilderness. Over in Joshua chapter 1. Joshua chapter 1. Beginning in verse 1 down through verse 6. Of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the minister, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all the people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that thy sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given unto you, as I said unto Moses. And this Lebanon, even to the great river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, the great sea toward the going down of the sun shall be your coast. There shall not be any man be able to stand before thee all the as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Be strong and of good courage, for unto his people thou shalt divide for an inheritance to give to them. Here we see we had God's plan. And now we see God fulfilling His plan. His promise. He promised them He'd take them through it. We see God fulfilling His promise unto His people. He said, all that you see, wherever your foot touches, that's yours. I told you, I was going to deliver you out of your troubles and your trials and your turmoils. I just want you to follow me. I will lead the way. Book of Matthew, chapter 18. Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. It says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst. We can't forget. We read that over and over again. But as a church, we can't just come here and expect and just think, well, the Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered together, here He is. It says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in what? My name. My name. If we leave God out of this church, if we try to do what we want to do, how we want to do it, how we want to go about getting a pastor, we expect God to meet with us. We can't afford God to leave this church. God is the head. Can you imagine if you cut your head off? It's lifeless. Your body cannot do without the head. You must trust God in all things that this church does and goes about. Because if we're not here gathering together in His name, we ain't got nothing. All we're doing is just wasting our time. I mean, that's it. If God's not meeting with us, We ain't got nothing. But do you not see God leading them to it? God leading them through it. God leading them out of it. We see God planning them to go. God providing for them in the midst of it through trials and troubles. And God said, I told you. I'm fulfilling my promise. I'm fulfilling my promise that I made, that I would take you out of this. Members of our church, we need to stand still and let God do our fighting. I'm not saying that we don't need to be active within our church, that we don't need to get together and pray together and seek the Lord's will. Lord, show us what you'd have us to do. That's part of the head. Go to Him. Lord, how would you go about us? I mean, this is the Lord's body. I mean, this is something. This is something we don't need to take lightly. We don't need to beat around the bush thing. We don't need to get used to being in the wilderness. We don't need to be getting used just to be satisfied with manna. I love every one of y'all's lessons. I'm not going to lie. I love every one of y'all. Y'all bless me with what the Lord's given you. But I want the Lord to speak to me and fill me with them steak and taters that stick to them ribs. I want a pastor. But we need to do it in His time and in His plan. I'm still chewing one of Brother Nathan's lessons that he gave on God still on plan A. God still, he hasn't diverged from the plan. He still knows what's going on. He's seen the beginning and He's already seen the end. Can we not be thankful about that tonight, to know that God already knows the future of our church? He already knows the very man that will be full in this pulpit already. He already knows. He already knows what messages He's going to preach. But we need to stand still and let Him lead us. Let Him guide us. Stand still and watch the Lord work. I have trouble standing still. I worry from time to time. Lord, when are you going to send us something? When are you going to send us a pastor? Lord knows. Why don't I just say, Lord, thy will be done? Lord, just let your will be done. I pray that your will be done. Lord, give me the grace. Give me the grace to follow you. Whether it's through the Red Sea, no matter what. We see they had the Red Sea to cross. They had the Egyptians and they had the Red Sea in front of them. And I love it, how the Lord talks about them when they cross. That He points out not just once, but twice, maybe 3 times. He said, and they passed over on dry land. He cared so much for His people that not only was He going to show them a way out that just totally blows your mind. There's troubles I love you and I'm going to take care of it. But not only am I going to have you take this road, but I'm going to let you travel on it on dry ground. I ain't even going to allow your feet to get muddy. The trust that you'd have to put into God. I mean, can you imagine how tall that wall of water was? And then how deep the sea was. I mean, I don't think it was just kind of crossing a pond. I believe when they got in there, they couldn't see. I believe all they could see was the sky above and the wall here. They got so far out there, they couldn't see behind them. They couldn't see in front of them. All they had to do was depend on God. Could you imagine you're out there? You have nothing else but water, and God. And something like that, what else are you going to cling to? I ain't going to cling to the person behind me. What are they going to do? Start burrowing under the ground like a dog? And something like that, you need God. You need God. My brothers and sisters, I believe without a shadow of a doubt that God is leading our church. He's guiding our church. He's still in control of our church. Trials and troubles are bound to come our way. But if we let God lead us and guide us, put Him first, pass over, walk over anything that comes our way. The Lord loves His church. He will take care of His church, just like He took care of His chosen people. I pray that this was an encouragement to you, Brother Tyler.